filler, but comes out just in time so that other, much better, more interesting books can't knock it off the bestsellers list in time for Christmas. Entitled Spare, although to be fair, it should just be called Entitled Spare, shouldn't it? A reference to the phrase the heir and the spare. It's expected to lay bare his life as a royal. The rest of the royals are likely to be less enamoured by the news. But get this, ladies and gentlemen, if you decide to get the audiobook, it's narrated by Prince Harry himself. I'm surprised he could. I would have thought he'd be crying too much or being shouted at by his other half. Paul Duddridge, host of Politics People podcast, joins me now. And he's usually stateside. Is he stateside again? Yes, he is. There we go. You're in LA, aren't you? Oh, grief. I mean, have we apologised to the nation, by the way, for inflicting Prince Harry on them yet? But just talk to me about this book. It's called Spare.
It's called Spare. I can't confirm that the original title was Going Spare. My wife is driving me nuts. There's no truth. There's no truth to that whatsoever. Yeah, so he's received $20 million advance, about 15 million, it's probably 20 million pounds at the moment, the way the economy is going, but he's received $20 million for what is the publishing event of the millennium, and it's coming out on January the 10th, which is obviously a famous high watermark for gift giving.
Yeah, the publishing event of the millennium, that was, I mean, good grief. It's just shocking stuff, isn't it? The idea, I mean, he clearly hasn't written it himself, unless it's been written in crayon.
Well, do you remember when he did his art exam at Eton, there was that whole scandal about somebody else had apparently...
Well, I was going to say, did he do his art exam at Eton? But we couldn't possibly comment on that. But yes, no, carry on. So some ghostwriter has got a share of 20 million big ones just for an advance.
This is exactly the story that's going about. There has been, well, there's bound to have been a ghostwriter. I'm pretty confident in saying that. But the first thing I want to deal with is that we keep calling him Harry. His name is Henry, and that was Harry's our affectionate nickname for him before he said he hated us all. So I think the very first thing we can do, just out of decency and our self-respect, is to go back to calling him his christened name, Henry. This is not Harry, our mate, doing this.
I quite like that, yeah. So in a way, he's been living a lie his whole life. But there we go. So what is the reaction stateside? Why is it coming out in January? Because I've got a little bit of a theory on this, which is that he wants it to be the #1 bestseller, of course, and I'm sure it probably will be at the time, but it might not have been over Christmas. So now he's going to be #1 of the charts. Is that right?
Listen, you are even as more or as cynical as I am. I think that's exactly the point. There's a lot of Christmas competition for books, and if this had come in anywhere other than #1, that would have been seen as a horrific error, and another slightly takes the guilt off the gingerbread, as they would say in Buckingham Palace. So I completely agree with you. I think they're doing it in a down season, so it's got no chance of ever being beaten by any other book coming out that week.
Do we know anything about the content of this yet? Because there was serious things about, he shouldn't be publishing it. The Queen's just passed away. King Charles is coming to the throne now. Give them a bit of a breather. But I mean, is the book just going to be 250 pages of wah, 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 trust fund, wah, wah, wah?
Listen, I wish I could give you a more verbose answer, but yeah, that's basically the book. I think the dust jacket and the book liners basically just say wah wah wah, poor me. I think it's even interesting that it's spare. Just on a serious note, even his own life, his own description. This is his autobiography, and he's describing himself in relation to William. Even that is something that he's not even.
Yeah, get himself. Over it, Henry.
What's that?
Get over it, Henry. Stop it. Yeah, it's your own book.
And I think that's the most telling thing for me. This was the opportunity. He owns that front page. He owns that title, and yet he's putting himself in relation to somebody else. And I think that's very interesting for an autobiography title.